So welcome everyone to our gathering. We're calling the gathering this evening Holy Encounters, which is a phrase that comes from A Course in Miracles and tells us when you meet anyone, remember it is a holy encounter. As you see them, you will see yourself. As you treat them, you will treat yourself. As you think of them, you will think of yourself. Never forget this, for in them you will find yourself or lose yourself. We're going to take the next few minutes to listen to a piece of music, and as we do, I invite you just to allow yourself to look at the beautiful faces on the screen with us this evening, to extend welcome and hospitality to everyone you see, and to allow yourself to receive the hospitality and welcome that's being extended to you as we listen to these beautiful words as if they are spoken from the divine, direct to our own hearts.
You are so beautiful to me. You are so beautiful to me. Can't you see? You're everything I hope for. You're everything I need. And you are so
What a precious and beautiful ministry to mirror that beauty back to the people we encounter in our lives, how much we all are in need of that quality of mirroring. Our guest for the gathering this evening is someone who has made that his ministry in ways that are so beautiful and so inspiring. So I'm really delighted to welcome Joe George. Joe is a graduate of One Spirit Seminary in 2014. Joe lives in Buffalo, New York, and for the past 10 years has lived car-free in Buffalo, even in the middle of winter. Everywhere Joe goes, his camera goes with him, and he records so many of the sights, so many of the expressions of life in Buffalo and other places he visits, including New York City, San Francisco, New Orleans. And one of the things Joe does is he meets people who are struggling to survive on the streets and asks if he can photograph them. And if they say yes, if they give their permission, he does, and then shows them the photograph. And you'll be able to see and hear from some of Joe's stories the reaction that brings, the light that brings into people's lives. I'm going to let Joe tell you the rest of his story himself, and then we'll have a chance to meet many of the amazing and beautiful people Joe has encountered as part of his ministry of befriending fellow human beings. So welcome, Joe. So glad to have you here.
Thank you, Diane. Thank you, everyone, for showing up. I am both humbled and thrilled to be here for this Thursday evening. As Diane said, tonight we're going to focus on what I've come to realize or recognize as a form of street ministry. I didn't always consider it that. Other people started referring it to that, and I've come to recognize it as that. And most of the people are from Buffalo, but they are from elsewhere, and I'll talk about them a bit as we go through it. Many, but not all of the people I'll show live on the street. Some of them have apartments. Some of them are near homeless, and some just need to be on the street to earn extra income to make ends meet. My purpose is not to glorify street people, but more so to bring an awareness to homelessness, and also to put a face on it. In this case, faces to the homelessness, to show them the same respect and dignity that we all deserve. No one aspires to be on the street, but many end up there for so many reasons. The notion that someone is on the street because they are lazy or addicted is often a misconception. Yes, that I do encounter a lot of drugs and alcohol with people on the street, but that's often not the root of the problem. That is most often, I find, a balm for the pain of living on the street. There's a small postcard, and I should have uploaded it. The small postcard I have, I bought in Toronto quite a few years ago, but it depicts this man, I'm assuming it's a man, maybe it's a woman, covered in blankets and snow on a city street in Toronto, and the caption reads, "You can't survive winter on the street if you're stupid and lazy." And I truly believe that. Some of the stories I hear from some of the people are just incredible. So I want to say also that I remember the very first day at one Spirit Seminary. I was nervous like a lot of us. And one of the first things we were asked to do was go around the room, greet each other, and say something to the effect like I would say, "Hello, my name's Joe. I see you, and I'm here to be seen." And that was such a simple but powerful exercise. And in a way, that's what this is, to help these people be seen, to give them a face. And then before I show you the photos, I also just want to give you a background, a little bit about myself and how I got to this place. Um, I've done this for many years. I've just recently, over the past 10 or maybe a little less years, started posting them on social media. I was apprehensive at first, and every once in a while I get a negative comment, but not very often. And but I get more often than not very positive comments. And I'll tell you what I mean by that in a minute or two. Um, so photography and writing is not my full-time job. It's something I've done for a while. I cook for a living. I've been a chef for many years, for 4 decades actually. I'm a graduate of the Culinary Institute of America. I studied at Le Cordon Bleu in Paris and Ottawa, received full scholarship to study at the School for American Chefs at Beringer Vineyards in Napa Valley. Um, I've cooked in white tablecloths most of my adult life, uh, but I've always had a soft spot for the downtrodden. Maybe about 3 years ago, a former sous chef of mine, a sous chef, if you're unaware, is a second chef. It's the first person under the chef. It literally means under chief, under chef. And he was from Italy and had moved back, and then he was in town and wanted to meet me. And we went out to dinner, and one of the things that he told me surprised me. He said, because sometimes you don't see yourself, how others see you. And one of the things he told me was, besides what he remembered most about me, besides good food, was how well I treated the dishwashers, who were mostly immigrants and underpaid. The kitchen door in a lot of restaurants is an economic divide. It really is. Most of the people that work in the kitchen couldn't afford to eat in the very restaurant they're serving. So this said, 10 years ago, when I turned 50, disillusioned with the restaurant industry, I made some conscious changes in my life. To quote the late theologian Henry Nouwen, I chose the path of downward mobility. One of the first things I did was get rid of my car and television. Nowadays, a television is no problem because everything's on the internet. 10 years ago, it wasn't so. And shortly thereafter, I enrolled in one Spirit Seminary, which was life-changing for me. I was ordained in 2014. I went on to study to become a spiritual counselor, and 2 years ago, at the young age of 58, I finally got my BA in religious and philosophical studies, graduating magna cum laude. I'm also an ordained deacon in the United Church of Christ, the denomination of church I attend. I've left working in restaurants about 5 years ago and now cook I'm no longer a chef, I work as a cook, and there is a difference. If you're not sure what the difference is, you can ask me at the end of the program. Throughout all of this, I fell back in love with my first artistic outlet, and that's the camera. I used to be a photographer when I was much younger and gave it up for a few years, and then picked it up again about 15 years ago. So literally for the last decade or more, I have not left the house without a camera, as Diane says. And that's the truth. So this is how it all came about. I'm putting all these things together. A Bible passage that often comes to me when I'm on the street and I see some of these people is this. It's from Hebrews 13. Do not forget to show hospitality to strangers, for by doing so, some people have shown hospitality to angels without knowing it. And speaking with a lot of these people, I mentioned to Diane last week when we had a meeting, I think sometimes a conversation is the most valuable thing because they're often invisible. Sitting on the street or standing, if people do acknowledge them, often it's not nice. Uh, so yeah, the conversation I think is as valuable as anything else you can give them. One last bit of info. I don't hand out money. I used to give them a couple dollars here and there, but now I hand out gift cards. And I have to tell you how that came about because it's pretty significant. It's really what has excelled my ministry in this, if you will. I want to say about 4 years ago, I had made a post and I commented on there that I didn't give this guy any money because I didn't have any myself to give. And instead, I just talked to him or something like that. About 2 days later in the mail, I got an envelope from this guy I know who was a minister in the United Church of Christ, and he had sent me 5 gift cards to McDonald's and said, give these out to your friends who meet on the street. So the next post I did, um, I didn't I don't think he wanted to be called out on it, so I didn't want to mention his name, but I wanted him to know that I was giving him out. So I said something like, and I handed this person a gift card to a restaurant that someone had given me specifically to hand out on the street. And within 5 minutes, that was on Facebook at the time, and within 5 minutes, my Facebook page lit up with everybody asking me how they can give me gift cards. Um, Within 3 days or so. I didn't have them sent to my home address. I used a different address. I had probably $2,000, $3,000 worth of gift cards. So that was for 2 years. I had to do the same. People have often asked me how they can still contribute to it, and I was holding them off. And about a month ago, I finally posted that I could use more, and the same thing happened. So this is, you can see it. These are all McDonald's cards, but I have them for a lot of local restaurants. I have 6 stacks of these on my dining room table. So there's I haven't counted them all, but there's probably at least $2,000 in $5 gift cards. So it's really it works both ways. The people get to eat, and it makes me safer as well. Um, and with that said, we can watch some or look at some of the images. I won't be using actually the only real names of people I will be using is the very first person and the last person, and I'll tell you when we get to them. So this is Sly. Sylvester is his full name. He knew everyone and everyone knew him. I say knew because he passed away about a year ago, just slightly over a year. Um, and another thing with people on the street, there's a lot of mental illness. Sly obviously had some sort of it. I'm told he was a Vietnam vet and had PTSD, but there were probably other issues there. And he was a person who was truly homeless. He would sleep literally on the street. I've seen him in the dead of winter because Buffalo winters can be very harsh. I do know that nurses would take him into the emergency room to let him sleep there. And there's a not far from where this image was actually taken was there's a psychiatric center that would let him stay there for the night. And but he had such a, you can see by his smile, so jovial. The neighborhood I live in is called Allentown, and I would be riding down the street and I'd hear in his deep bellowing voice, Allentown, but he was really a good guy. He's so well liked that there's an artist in Buffalo who I don't know the name, I just remember reading it, that is making a sculpture of him, and they're hopefully going to have a statue of him in Buffalo. Next image, please. So this is another one I wanted to show in the beginning. This guy I actually, just on my way home from work this evening, about an hour ago, I stopped and chatted with him. He's what I call one of my regular customers. He's on the street almost every time I go out there. And why I wanted to show these 2 pictures, because he can be tough to take if you don't know him. They're not all personable. The way he approaches can be aggressive. He's not trying to be aggressive. It's just how he is. So I know a lot of people say nasty things to him and all this, and he's really a gentle soul when you speak to him. I won't disclose too much of their personal stuff. I'll just say that he told me when I first met him that, and this is about 3 years ago, he ended up in Buffalo. He was just released from prison, and this is where they dropped him off. He was in prison downstate, and he's not from here, but they drop you off and give you a certain amount of money or whatever, which is not enough to really establish yourself. But he had gone to jail as a teenager for larceny. He had broken into someone's house, him and another guy. The other guy was white. And this person here got 3 times the amount of jail sentence for it. Whether or not it's true, I don't know, but I can't imagine why he would just make that up without me asking it. Next image, please. So this one, I wasn't sure if I was going to show this. This one, for me, is tough to take. Why I say that is because here's a person that's a good example that doesn't fit the image, if you will, of someone homeless. And he was truly homeless when I spoke to him. This is a couple years ago. I don't think he was homeless long. He told me, and I won't give you details, but he told me, he used the phrase, it was a perfect storm of events that happened, where it eventually made him evicted from his apartment. And it was 2 days in. He was only on the street 2 days when I spoke to him. And as an aside, I'm always surprised how many people allow me to take their photos, including this guy. But the good news is, and this is a power of the internet that I say there's just as much good on it as there is negativity. When I posted this, and again, this was 2 years ago, someone commented, they wanted to know where I saw him. And it was a person who owned a construction company and was going to go and get him to offer him work. Because as you see, his sign says willing to work. So I'm assuming he is not on the street at this point. Next image, please. This one I like for a couple reasons. One, people often, when they see me walking with a camera in my hand, they actually ask me to take their picture. The woman in the wheelchair did so. You know, she is very bossy. She's like, she said, you some kind of a cameraman? And I said, yeah, I take pictures. And she's like, you gonna take ours? And I said, sure, if you want me to. And I often have to look for light. And I'll show you another image where that's apparent. But I had to do that, and I told her I needed a little more light show. So she spun around in a wheelchair and grabbed her friend. And she's like, come on, he's going to take our picture. And she pulled him down to her side. And anyhow, what's nice about this was about a week after this, the guy on the gentleman to her right, our left, saw me on the street and told me that a local counseling service that he's hooked up with, his counselor showed them this picture, and he was like thanking me profusely for everything I said and the image and stuff like that. And one last note, I find it very moving that people on the street often have something that says God bless on it, and they say that to me as well. You know, God bless you. So next image, please. This is the one where I was talking a minute ago, where I said I'm often looking for light. When I asked this guy if I could take his picture, I looked up at a lamp behind me, a street lamp, and he looked up at it and kept that pose. And I just thought it was so cool, because it's like he's looking off into the distance. But this is a gentleman who I spoke to just a couple weeks ago. Next image, please. The next few are people that are not homeless, but near homeless, and they need to make ends meet. This is a woman who I see on the street often, especially in winter for some reason. And I have to reiterate that what I'm told by people on the street, I don't know if it's true, of course, but I think most of it is. And the reason I say that, every time I meet this woman, she tells me a different name. But she's very nice. She could be someone's grandma. She calls me honey when I speak to her, like, stay warm, honey. And she's holding up a necklace because she said she made it and was out selling her jewelry. And I asked how many she had, and that was the only one. Next image, please. This woman I just spoke to just a few days ago. And it's interesting to note that she's wearing more summery clothes. A few days ago in Buffalo, New York, it was 80 degrees, and today it's snowing. But that's a side note. But I spoke to her. She's sitting literally in front of her apartment. And I asked her outright, I said, how come you're sitting out here asking for money? And she said she can't walk very much. She's on social services, and it's not enough to live on. And it was the end of the month. It was like, you know, as it is now. So this is just a few days ago. It was the end of the month, and she needed food to eat with. So of course I got her gift cards, but she needed other food as well. Next image, please. This woman cracks me up. You could see her smile. Um, she was reluctant at first for me to take her picture, but eventually she did. And she just has such a nice personality. She's another one who I do not believe is homeless. Um, but I see her on the street often. She's another one who always calls everybody honey. Next, please. This guy was particularly sad for me. I met him outside Walgreens a couple weeks ago, and I often ask people how long they've been on the street and how did it happen, things like that. And often the stories I hear, I of course don't repeat them. Um, but the one thing I will say about this gentleman, he told me he was on the street for a year, and it happened because he lived with his mother for his whole life, and his mother died a year ago, and he had no place to go. So now he's on the street. He has someone who lets him sleep on their couch for $10 a night, and that's the base minimum that he has to panhandle to get a shelter. So he was a very nice guy. Next, please. This woman is one of my favorites as well. I have a lot of favorites. This one was one of my favorites. I only spoke to her once. It was last summer. You can see by the way she was dressed. I was on one corner and I could hear her because she was screaming, and she obviously has some sort of condition, and she was screaming. I was standing on the corner. Sometimes I do that with my camera on the weekend nights on my way home in the summer. I just love it. And in my head, I'm thinking to myself, please don't come here. Please don't come here. And of course, she came right up to me and started talking to me. What you doing with that camera? Why are you out here with that? Stuff like that. And I asked her if I could take her picture, and she said, I'm gonna break your camera if you take my picture. So she agreed to it, and I took her picture, and I showed it to her, and her response was, uh, I'm beautiful. People have always told me I'm ugly. So she really liked her photo, and she is beautiful. Next image, please. This one, the last one, this one, and the next one. I'm just showing these two briefly because they said the same thing. This woman, the next two actually were on 23rd Street in Manhattan. About a month ago, I was in New York, and on my way back to my hotel room, and this woman said the same thing. You made me look beautiful. Next, please. And this woman is the same thing. She told me she was too ugly to have her picture taken, and when I showed it to her, she said she was beautiful. Next image, please. This guy, I like him. When I asked if I could take his picture, he said, "You gotta see all of me," and he lifted up his bike. He's a local in the neighborhood, and he makes money not only by panhandling but by window washing. So that's all his gear on the bike, and he wanted me to see his bike. I just love this because I'm a cyclist. That's how I get around. Next, please. So this is coming into a series of bottle and can collectors. This is a guy in the neighborhood. I see him all the time. I've actually spoken to him a few times. He's also a war vet from Desert Storm. It's amazing how many veterans I meet on the street. Next, please. This guy I met downtown Buffalo, and this was last spring, so about a year ago. And I was impressed by the amount of cans he was carrying while he was walking his bike. And he told me he was going to ride his bike home to Kaisertown, which is a neighborhood in Buffalo, maybe about 5 miles from where I saw him. He's not homeless, or wasn't homeless when I spoke to him. He lived with his mother, who was home sick with cancer, and the medical bills were not they didn't have enough money to cover all their bills every month. So he worked full time and collected cans on the side. Next, please. This woman, um, I see her around in the summer. Buffalo has always had a large immigrant population, and it's changed over the years, and now it's resurged. And in many ways, immigrants have been saving our city, especially in rundown neighborhoods where they're rebuilding the houses. But anyhow, um, I see her all the time, and I'm so impressed how she carried the cans. And I asked her if I could take her picture, and she turned sideways to show me the bag of cans. Next, please. This guy I saw on my way to work about maybe 6 months ago, and I'm always impressed by how much they carry. You'll see another guy in a minute that has even more. And his deal was he told me he couldn't work because he had open heart surgery and he couldn't do strenuous labor. And I said, look at all these cans you're carrying. And he said he'll be okay. And he said his wife always yells at him too. But so yeah, that's how he's getting around with this. That was a not a shopping cart. It was some sort of a dolly. You can see it's got 3 wheels on it. Next image, please. These next two I particularly love. So this is another example of people who are not homeless. This was not far from my house. It was last summer in the evening, I think fall actually, and it was a large garbage night pickup. You know, when you can put big stuff out. And they're walking down the street with their shopping cart, and for lack of better words, they just looked so much in love to me. They were so happy the way they were interacting with each other, and in the same way in the photo, they always seemed to touch each other. And I approached them, and they thought I was weird at first when I asked them if I could take their image. And then I just told them I love taking pictures of people on the street, this type of thing. And they said yes. And he started pushing the shopping cart out of the image, and I asked him if he'd keep it there, and he did. But just the look in their eyes, I just think it's beautiful. Next image, please. And here's another one. They were collecting cans on the street. I actually just saw the man. This is about 6 months, maybe a little longer than 6 months. It was beginning of winter. Buffalo has 7-month winters. But I just saw the man yesterday on the street. I didn't speak to him, but coming in my house, he was by himself. But when they were together, they'd assist him. She would push the cart, and he would go down between the houses. It's probably safer for a man. He would go between the houses and look in the recycling bins for bottles and cans. And I asked if I could take their picture, and they readily agreed. But they were standing in front of their cart. They didn't want an image. But again, they just look so much in love. You know, I just love seeing the images in people's eyes. And I'm going to talk about that in a few more slides. Next image, please. This is a guy who I was talking about. That's all on one shopping cart. Why this is interesting to me, besides the sheer amount he was carrying. When I first met him, he didn't have it all loaded. He had some of it spread out on the sidewalk, and he was sorting it because they won't take it if it's all mixed in together. And while he was doing that, I was talking to him, and there was a person across the street who I'm assuming had mental illness who was screaming, and everybody in the neighborhood as they walked by were looking at him. And this guy looked up at me, and he said something like, these people shouldn't judge. That man can't help what he's doing, you know. And I just thought that was moving, coming from someone who's on the street talking about that. But yeah, what he carried was pretty impressive. Next, please. This is another one. He's a Vietnam vet. This is in front of my next door neighbor's house, actually. I was out doing yard work, and he came by, and I met him a bunch of times. And he walked by, and he's just like, hey, Joe, how's it going? And I asked if I could take his image, and he said yes, but he's such a nice gentleman. Next, please. This guy is quite a character, as you can see by his bike. That's a bike, and he carries everything he has on the handlebars, and the back of the bike is the same way. And again, I don't want to reveal the names, but if I did say this guy's name, it's just kind of funny. It fits his image. He's just a character. That's why I wanted to show this one. I don't believe this guy is homeless per se, but he's probably near homeless. Next, please. Why I wanted to show this one, this was last summer in the evening, and this guy asked me for money. I gave him a couple cards. He had an accent. I asked him where he was from, and I think he was from the, I forget now. It was from the Middle East. I want to say United Arab Emirates, maybe. But anyhow, he was new to this country, and he only had one more step to becoming an American citizen, and that's what he's holding up there. He was so proud. So I'm assuming by now he is an American citizen. And he told me specifically, I forget what he did for work in his home country, but the reason he wasn't working is because he doesn't have citizenship yet. And he was trying to, and he said he couldn't wait to work and be an established American. Next, please. So this is one of my favorite photos out of all of them, mostly because of um, focuses on his eyes. You're naturally gravitated to this gentleman's eyes. Many different religions speak of the eyes being the path to the soul. And I mean, this couldn't be more obvious with this guy, right? And I just like it because the way the snow is falling on his head and around him, and you can see flakes behind him. But with that said, for the next 5 or 10 slides, I'm not going to speak about them. I'm just going to ask David to click through it. And I just want you to look at if you would, their eyes and the humanity of them. Okay, so those I just find it beautiful when I speak to these people. Really, um, some of them really bare their souls talking. But I know you can't take your eyes off this image, so I'll tell you about it. So this was in San Francisco just before COVID hit. I was out there. I took a train across country, and I was walking, and I saw this guy in the corner of Haight and Ashbury. Not if you're familiar with San Francisco, that's like the epicenter of like hippie stuff. And the dog was not on his back. He was standing there, and this was before I carried. No, I did have some cards with me at the time. That's right. I just had McDonald's once. But anyhow, um, he was standing there, and this dog was next to him, and I said, "Could I take a picture of you and your dog?" And he was like, "Hang on a second." And he bends over and does a little like with his mouth, clicking sound. And the dog hopped right up there, and the glasses never even fell off the dog's face. And I said, "How long does he stay up there?" And he said, "Well, as long as I can stand here. It's a lot easier for him." Next image, please. So these next few are from New Orleans. I was there last summer. Um, this guy I liked because of his response to me. I asked if I could take his photo. He said yes, and he's been playing his horn, as he called it, on the streets of the French Quarter for 50 years, 50. And I said, making a living at it. And I said, "Do you mind me asking you how old you are?" And he said, "Why, yes, I do." Next image, please. This guy was particularly interesting to talk to. He was walking ahead of me and carrying a bucket, and I heard the slight sound of a harmonica, and I'm looking around to see where it was coming from, and I realized it was him in front of me, and so I kind of quickened my pace to get in front of him, not trying to act like I was just going to turn around. So I looked in a window of a shop, and as he passed, I turned and said, "You have an interesting look." I said, "Do you mind if I take your photo?" And he said, "Well, I guess this is as good of any place to start working tonight." And he flipped the bucket over and sat down and started playing his harmonica. Um, What I thought was interesting was I didn't realize it until after I uploaded the photo. To the right of, amidst all of his tattoos, to the right of his eye is a tattoo. It says Marie Laveau, who is a famous voodoo priestess of New Orleans. She's buried in cemetery number 1. I visited her grave before. And it's interesting, a side note, misconception some people have about voodoo as well, especially someone like Marie Laveau. She was also a devout Catholic and attended church 7 days a week at a Catholic church, St. Louis Church in New Orleans. Next image, please. This guy was fun. He was a poet who sat in the middle of a square with his typewriter, and for $5, you give him $5, and he'll either just write a poem for you, or you could pick any topic, or just give him a single word, and he'll write a poem for you. And I asked him, he was sleeping on a friend's couch. He's been in New Orleans for 2 years. He didn't have an apartment of his own. And I said, you make enough to get by? And he said, well, some days I make nothing. Some days I make $5. And some days I make $30, but it's enough to live on. And when I asked him if I could take his photo, which he readily agreed to, he asked me to get a picture of his doll, which is underneath the chair, which it wouldn't fit in the image, but I told him it could. But anyway, I just thought he was interesting, very upbeat. Next image, please. This guy is actually someone I know. I knew like 25 years ago. He was a cook in a restaurant I worked at. And then one day I saw him walking down the street dressed like this, and stopped him and asked if I could take his photo, which he said yes. And the dress he's wearing is not a costume. That's his identity right now. I forgot what native tribe he identifies with, but this is how he dresses all the time, and that's who he is now. I found that really interesting and powerful. Next image, please. This guy I just thought was fun to take his image. This was during the Black Lives protests. Buffalo, like a lot of cities, but Buffalo had a lot of protests, and they all went up. I live a block away from the main drag in the city, and all of them went right by my house. And I would go out and take images. And I asked if I could take his, and he just nodded yes at me. So that's that one. Next, please. This guy I saw walking down the street one day, dressed like that, and waving his claw at people. And I stopped, and I'm like, what's the deal? He's like, what do you mean, what's the deal? I'm like, are you promoting like a seafood restaurant or something? He's like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, well, why are you dressed like that? He's like, I just like to dress up. So I said, do you mind if I take your photo? And he got down on one knee immediately and struck this pose. Next, please. This guy is interesting. The image he's showing is me. I was out having a drink one night, and he came in and was drawing. He wasn't asking for money, but people were giving it to him. I paid him for this, and I still have the image somewhere. But he would draw your image in about 3 minutes, and that's mine right there. Next, please. This guy was interesting also, just like you don't see too many people just walking down the street with a Fender Stratocaster guitar. And I approached him and I said, where are you coming from? He's like, to play my guitar. So I asked if I could take his picture, and he said yes. Next image, please. This guy was in another one from the protests, the Black Lives Matter protests. Downtown Buffalo, anyway, I know a few cities, but downtown Buffalo got ugly at times. Some of the peaceful protests turned not so peaceful. So it was really refreshing to see someone do this, and people were accepting his hugs. I did not, but some people were. Next, please. We're on our last 2 images, and they're both of the same person. And I said I would only mention 2 names, and this one's the other one. This is Chuck, also known as the Bubble Man of Allentown, which is my neighborhood. So that's 4 stories up there. The camera's up to his window. He was a Vietnam vet. I'm told his brother, there's a restaurant on the ground floor, Jim's, and I'm told, I don't know if this is true, this is just what I heard, his brother who owned the restaurant also owns a building, and this is how Chuck lived there. And Chuck, for the last I really think it's 30 years, it was at least 20 years, would sit in his window and blow bubbles through the intersection for all day. I don't know when he slept. It would be, I'd walk home at night and there'd be bubbles blowing. But it was so beautiful. I've often used the phrase, and I still say it, that it turned the neighborhood into like an adult Sesame Street. You would be walking 3 blocks away and there would be bubbles. You know, you see people waving their hands to bubbles out of their um, face. But so what's interesting, uh, next image, please. So what's interesting is uh, when he'd see me with the camera, he was temperamental and wouldn't often allow me to take his image. He would see me with the camera and stop blowing bubbles, and I would wait, and he wouldn't blow them, and I'd walk away, and he'd start again. There's even a ledge underneath where his building is. I'd go stand under the ledge, and I realized he could see me in the reflection of a window across the street, and he would wait until I left. But then he got to know me because I was in the neighborhood so often, and he started posing for. I have a bunch of them like this, looking right at me, smiling. So yeah, this is Chuck, and he passed away just like last spring, I believe. He's really beloved in the area. The lack of his bubbles have changed the neighborhood. But that is the end of the images, and I'm open to if anybody has any conversation or any questions or anything.
Just extraordinary, so moving.
And what was
I
that?
can't, Richie, on Zoom, I can't thank you enough. And I can't thank Diane and everybody here. It's just fantastic. You've made my day
Thank you.
to have.
Hi, Joe.
Hey, Debbie.
Hi. Class of 2014.
Hi.
Woohoo! Oh my gosh. Joe, this is such an honor and a joy and a pleasure for me to see you in Zoom. Maybe one of these days, you know, actually in person when you come back to New York. But I follow you, of course, on Facebook, and I don't have words. I literally am. I feel so grateful and blessed to see you and the work you do, and your photos are beyond words. I do have a question. At least the statistic a couple of years ago, maybe that's changed. Hopefully it's changed, but a very big proportion of homeless people are actually homeless families, including children. Have you encountered any homeless families, including kids?
Only once, and it's an interesting quick story. Only once I encountered an entire family. It was a mother with what looked like 3 of her children. I was walking home about a block from my house, and it was like something out of an old movie. There was this woman. As I say, there's a lot of immigrants and refugees in Buffalo, and there was this woman with her 3 children who looked like they could have been from India or Afghanistan or some area of the world like that, the way they were dressed. And they were literally huddled in a doorway. And I stopped. You know, I couldn't just walk by, and I was asking her, "Are you okay? Do you have some place to go?" And she was shaking her head. And as I did that, a van pulled up, and it turned out to be some sort of I don't know what organization it was, but it was like the type of, you know, how people go out and check on the homeless. It was a legit organization. I forget what it was. It might be the one I work for now, but I didn't know them then. And they came and literally swept them away and took them to a shelter or something. But that was the only time I ever saw a whole family out.
I hope that's a good sign.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, one other comment, and I think I did mention it to you on Facebook. If you ever get a chance to go to Key West, Florida, it will be your photographs. I mean, Florida, there's a saying in Key West, sooner or later, they all get there. And they do. So you will have a ball if you get to Key West.
On my list of places to visit.
Oh, absolutely. Maybe I can meet you there. I'm due. I'm absolutely due. Thank you so much, Joe. What a privilege and a joy and an honor. Thank you for your service and who you are. Thank you.
So, Joe, I have a question. How has doing this ministry changed you?
It's a very good question. It's changed me a lot. You know, and the thing is that it was never a conscious ministry. It's just something I did, you know, and it's grown into more now. And as I mentioned in our meeting last week, I can't really discuss where I work. I work at a group home for the formerly homeless, but the type of people I cook for, and I'm right in the house, is the very same type of people I've showed you for the first 3/4 of tonight. And so it gets difficult at times, but I have to remember why I've started, why I do this. But yeah, it's really, in many ways, it's cracked open my heart.
Joe, thank you. You've brought beauty to my day, and I was so touched by people seeing the beauty in themselves as you showed them the photo. And in looking in those eyes, I saw myself. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. The one person who I spoke of who was sitting next to a Walgreens, his mother passed away, that one, and he was on the street. When I showed him the photo, he told me he hasn't seen a picture of himself since he was a little boy. And he looked like he was probably like my age, probably about 60 years old.
Any other? Yeah, Martha.
Yeah, Joe, I'm wondering, what we've just witnessed is an hour's worth of magnificent humanity that is so touching. And how do you care for yourself not to be drawn into their stories, to keep your focus on the beauty of each of them?
That's another very good question, because I'll answer that two parts. Some days I do absorb a lot of it, especially because I do this every day at work, and I work with a lot of these people, and it gets exhausting some days, and I have to just pull myself away. You know, tonight I showed images of all these people, but that's only part of what I take images of. You know, I make photos of so many other things where I try to see the beauty of the world around me. I comment to people, and sometimes people think I'm being silly, but I'm not when I say that the photos I post are really like my therapy, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But there are times when I'm just not feeling it. I'll be walking down the street and see a particular person that I know is going to come up to me, and I just don't have it in me, you know. I'm just drained, and I will cross the street or just, you know, something like that.
So you just witness your own inner being in terms of what you can hold.
Consciously and unconsciously.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm. Thank you.
Joe, I would just love to add my voice to the room. You know, I feel like I've in a way gotten to know you just through Facebook, and as Martha said, that, you know, the humanity, that there's something so poignant and touching and heartbreaking and inspiring somehow. And it's so much. I see you with the camera. I mean, you're helping us see these people, and it's also such a beautiful reflection of who you are and your heart, you know, that we're seeing through your lens. So I thank you for that. I think your ministry is just amazing and ripples out. I mean, it has this exponential impact. So thank you for what you're doing and what you're bringing to us.
Thank you, Melissa.
So we're coming to the end of our evening. Thank you so much, Joe, for sharing your love, your exquisite vision of who people are with us, and let us know whenever you need more cards. We're going to close with another piece of music. This is David will play just the audio track, please. This is called I Will Help You Stand.
Who are you and who am I? Do we really know ourselves and do we know why? Well, that is a question I've been asking myself since the morning I was born onto this earth. I wonder when I'm gonna know whereabouts where I go. I get glimpses and glimpses, will they become real? And I know how I feel as life takes me around on this great spinning wheel. And I will stand next to you when you're feeling low, and I will stand next to you when you wonder what way you will go. We've all been in this place where we fall from our grace, and we wonder what way we will turn. And all I can say is I will help you stand. I will help you stand. Walking around on this cold misty day, you look into the distance, you're thinking away. Your body is tired, there are tears in your eyes. You let down all your fences, you've let go of disguise. And now we are here, we are raw as we lay on the floor, looking up to the heavens. Oh, please have no fear, I am next to you, dear. And together we'll get through this until it all clears. And I will stand next to you when you're feeling low, and I will stand next to you when you wonder what way you will go. We've all been in this place where we fall from our grace, and we wonder what way we will turn. And all I can say is I'll be there by your side when your mind it collides, when you're drifting around with no place to reside, when your soul is alone, when you're naked and bare to the bone. I will hold you in my arms. Or just relax now and be calm. 'Cause I will stand next to you when you're feeling low, and I will stand next to you when you wonder what way you will go. We've all been in this place where we fall from our grace, and we wonder what way we will turn. And all I can say is I will help you stand. I will help you stand. I will help you stand. I will help you stand.
May we have the open hearts to help each other stand. Thank you to all of you for being here. Thank you, David, for your, as always, wonderful tech support. Thank you again, Joe. You are such a blessing and a gift.
I will stand next to you when you're feeling low, and I will stand next to you when you wonder what way you will go. We've all been in this place where we fall from our grace.